Tennessee This Week from WATE 6 on your side starts now.
Hello and welcome to Tennessee This Week. We are joined by our panel of pundits. This week we have with us political analyst George Corda, our healthcare analyst Craig Griffith, and legal analyst Greg Isaacs. And I'll tell you what, this past week in Tennessee has been one for the books and really nationwide. With President Trump's issues, the arraignment, with the dealing with gun control at the Capitol, the vote to expel people. We're going to take these in chunks. So we're going to start with what's going on in Tennessee. On Thursday, 3 state lawmakers were up for expulsion. 2 of them were actually voted out. That was Justin Pearson, Representative Justin Pearson, and Representative Justin Jones. Both Democrats were expelled. Knoxville Representative Gloria Johnson was not expelled. So the first question is this the right action by the legislature? Should they have just maybe censured and moved on? Or again, was this the right thing to do? George, you want to start off tonight?
Well, I think with the Republican decision to do this, I was thinking about the Beach Boys song called "Don't Worry, Baby." And it's got a line in it that says, "I can't back down because I pushed the other guys too far." And I think what they did was get out too far, too fast, and then couldn't get back. Because what they've done, in effect, is to create a martyr issue around these 3 Democrats. Gloria is possibly disappointed she didn't get expelled. Probably not, but possibly. And it's what I call it a domino effect in politics. It's what I tell politicians when they ask me. Every political action is like pushing over a domino. And it's going to hit another one. And it's going to go straight or it's going to go in different directions. And you have to decide, is the reaction worth what you're going to do? Sometimes it is, sometimes it isn't. And you have to plan for what those reactions are. And in this case, look, they had to be disciplined. Absolutely, positively, they had to be disciplined. You cannot turn the floor of the House of Representatives into a place where you come in with bullhorns and start demonstrating. That can't happen. But to your point, what you said earlier, I think there were ways to deal with this, to take away their committee assignments, put them in a broom closet somewhere, pull their parking passes, and tell them, you do this again, you're going to be out. Because the Democrats don't matter in Nashville. They're such a tiny minority, they don't matter. They're ineffective. So the Republicans have, in effect, made them national figures. And I don't think they meant to do that when they started out.
Craig?
Right. Well, I think I'll go with what the Nashville, Tennessean newspaper editorialized to file expulsion resolutions for these, quote, outbursts, was just wrong. And I think that they have been trying to get rid of Gloria Johnson for years. They funded opponents to run against her. They put her in a broom closet to see if they could discourage her from running, and finally gerrymandered her house out of her district, so she had to move to run again. And this failed again by 1 vote. And it possibly might have hinged on the fact that she came out that she would lose her health insurance, and she has a number of medical issues. People might have in the House felt sorry for her. But yes, they should have been disciplined. They did lose their committee assignments. They did lose their parking passes. But to bring this up to the standard of expulsion that historically has been in the House, it didn't come to nearly that level of violations that were required for expulsions. So I think they have made these people, as George said, martyrs in the Democratic Party. And there's no doubt in my mind that both of the Democrats that were expelled will run again in the special election and be elected and then be back on Capitol Hill.
And just
going to go from there.
Yeah, just so people understand, I guess that's the legal side of all this, is anyone who was expelled can run again in the special election, come right back like it never even happened. So moving on that way. Greg, you want to weigh in on that?
Well, Don, it was a bad week for Tennessee all the way around. We had the unfortunate, terrible, horrific shooting at Covenant Middle School, 3 9-year-olds, 3 adults senselessly killed. Then you have the protest at the State House. And I disagree. Let's look at why and how you can expel somebody from the Tennessee legislature. It is rare. Only 2 to 3 times since the 1800s have we ever done this. Most recently was Representative Durham, who was accused of assaulting 22 separate women in 1986. Before then, in 1980, Mr. Fisher from Elizabethton that had asked for a bribe for his vote. Then we go back to 1866, where 6 individuals refused to ratify the 14th Amendment because of slavery. This is unheard of, and it drew unprecedented national attention. Now, under Article 2, Section 12 of the Tennessee Constitution, the House leadership has the right to discipline members that engage in disruptive behavior. But I don't think this rose to the level. And I think Gloria Johnson's expulsion really highlighted this. It's much like a lawsuit. You file a complaint, which is known as a resolution. It said she had a sign. She didn't have a sign. It said she yelled. She didn't have it. She didn't yell. George, there wasn't bullhorns. There was a single bullhorn by one representative. This only took a few moments. I think it was unprecedented. And the eyes of the nation were watching as this took place. And every national pundit said Tennessee is broken.
Greg,
it is a bad day for Tennessee.
It's irrelevant how many bullhorns were on the floor of the House. You can't have a bullhorn on the floor of the House of Representatives and disrupt the proceedings without paying a price. Now, I've said I don't think they should have been expelled. I don't. However, you can't do that, and you can't excuse it either. You can't say, "Oh, it wasn't that big a deal," because it is that big a deal.
Well, you know what? I'll tell you what a big deal to me was when you have representatives ask the children / protesters what type of firearm they would prefer to be shot with, aka William Lambert. I mean, I think we deserve more. Our children deserve more. And now, George, I agree. If you disrespected the well, should you had a censure? Yes. Should we have drawn national attention and taken it away from the debate on the Second Amendment? And the other thing that is troublesome is 200 Tennesseans voted for these 3 legislatures. So what they in essence did was cancel 2/3 of those votes.
Not 200.
200,000. Yeah, that's all right.
200,000. 70 for Gloria. And she won by 1 vote. Now, she lost the expulsion issue. The vote was 65 to 30, but it requires under the Tennessee Constitution a 2/3 majority. 1 vote is why Gloria is in the House tonight.
What is it when you said you've all alluded to the national media looking at this and the nation looking at it? How do we come out from this? I mean, is this one? Are the people in charge of the state house now the Republicans? Are they, like you said, they've just created something they're going to have to deal with? And also the eyes of the nation, how are they viewing Tennessee?
Well, it's irrelevant in some ways, because when I was a state spokesman, I got a call from the Atlanta Journal-Constitution one time asking me some fairly tough questions. So I went up to see the governor's press secretary and I said, "What do you want me to do with this?" He said, "Do they pay taxes in Tennessee? Are they Tennessee residents?" I said, "No." He said, "Well, deal with them accordingly." So I dealt with them accordingly. I wasn't nasty to them. I answered their question. But the point is, people are moving to Tennessee, coming to Tennessee for economic and social reasons and political reasons. I've got neighbors who fled Washington State because they can't stand the liberal politics in Washington State. And people are coming to Tennessee. And if you don't believe me, check the rental truck prices between here and any blue state you wish to check, and you'll find out it costs a lot more to move to Tennessee than it does to go there. So is the national media going to bash Tennessee for a while? Yes. Will it turn Tennessee any bluer or stop people from coming here? No.
Well, I think the legislature needs to get down to business now. They need to come up with some the governor's proposed, some funding for mental health issues. And I think there needs to be, and SROs in school, and
Right.
there needs to be a talk of red flag laws, which in this case might have been appropriate because of the mental health issues that this person had. So,
Hey, Craig,
but in terms of national disposition, it may have an economic impact, untold. Will a company decide to move to Tennessee now in light of this? Maybe yes, maybe no. It may be the lack of income tax is more important than having a discussion like this in the House of Representatives. But it could have an economic impact down the road in losing jobs and plants and things like that to other states.
And Greg, if you want to weigh in on that before we take a break here, on the impact it may have from a national, and does it really matter?
Well, I think Craig hit a good point. I think when you have major companies, they look at a variety of factors when they decide to relocate. And the sad part of it was, whether you're on one side of the issue or the other, this week was so disruptive. We didn't get to debate the issues that need to be debated. And instead of talking about red states, blue states, we have too many politicians and not any public servants. So I think that's the big loser, that regardless of whether you're red, blue, or somewhere in the middle, we didn't have the dialogue about issues like gun control, school safety, mental health, and I think everybody loses.
Well, on that topic, that's of course what started all this. People were there chanting for gun control, and then the people went up there. So when we come back, let's take a brief break. And when we come back, we will talk about possible solutions, what the state is going to do, what the governor's proposed, and things like that when it comes to the safety of our people and the safety of our students here in Tennessee. You're watching Tennessee This Week, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. The issue that we've been talking about, the 3 representatives that were voted for expulsion, and 2 of them were actually expelled. It was all started about gun control. They were saying that they wanted to represent their constituents and talk about gun control instead of some of the other measures. It seems, to the panel I say, it seems that the legislative, the leaders of the legislature want to go towards maybe more school resource officers, more training. Basically, a good guy with a gun can stop a bad guy with a gun instead of doing things like background checks or maybe red flag laws. Are we handling this correctly? Is there a way that we should kind of mix some of this stuff? What should the legislature be doing? Because right now, I mean, like I said, what was it last year? We got away with having to have a permit to conceal carry or open carry. So we have looser gun laws and not stricter gun laws.
Who do you want to go first?
Anyone can jump in.
All right, I'll jump in.
You don't want to touch it.
All right, no, I'll touch it all you want. No, the thing about what do you do? And then there's the argument, we have to do something. Something has to be done. And I've had a number of conversations with people over the last, since this tragedy occurred. And I've noticed a consistency in the conversations, and it is nobody wants to talk about who did the shooting. What they want to talk about is guns, or the gun that was used in the shooting. That's it. And when I've tried to inject, well, what about the person who actually committed the crime? The other day, a person said to me, well, they're dead. It doesn't matter. I said, you don't want to know the motive? You don't want to know why they did it? You don't want to know what led up to it? And then all they wanted to do then was end the conversation. Because it's easier to make it about the thing than it is to make it about the person. And then you've got this whole issue about who did the shooting. I was reading a report yesterday that CBS banned the word transgender from their coverage of the shooter. Now, I dare say no one, or CBS would not have banned that it was a white supremacist. So people begin to see politics in this argument. Here's the reality. Probably 300,000 with respect to AR-15s, which is a gun that's always talked about. There are probably 300,000 to 400,000 AR-15s in private ownership in Tennessee. there are an estimated 15 million in private ownership in the country. That's 1 in every 20 Americans. According to FBI statistics, fewer than 400 people total in the entire country die by rifle fire every year from rifles of all kinds. So if the problem exists, the problem is it what they're using, because if somebody couldn't get their hands on an AR-15, you say they wouldn't commit a crime? They wouldn't go in and viciously kill people
Right.
if they couldn't get an AR-15?
So
it's easier to focus on the thing
right.
than it is to focus on the person, unless the person is politically incorrect. What's the answer? We could turn our schools into prisons and surround them with walls and barbed wire and metal detectors and guards. But then what are you going to do at the bus stops?
Well,
that's certainly the direction that the governor is going.
If it were an easy answer, somebody would have found it by now.
Right.
That's certainly the direction the governor is going in terms of making schools more bulletproof. But that does turn them into prisons. I think that in the end, you're going to have metal detectors and things like that at the school entrances. So, but in terms of the actual weapon of use, the problem with the AR-15, when it was first developed, the manufacturer said, no, this is a military weapon. It's not for consumer use. The assault ban, weapon ban came and went, and all of a sudden they started selling them. And
I don't think that's right, Craig.
What?
I don't think that's right. I was in the Army for 6 years. It's not an assault rifle. An assault rifle is something that fires full automatic and semi-automatic. There are millions upon millions of semi-automatic rifles out there that aren't AR-15s.
Right.
Well, the children in that school would say they're an assault weapon.
Right.
But the point is, those weapons
I'm not going to let you do that, because you're implying that I don't care about
and
the
they
children.
do so much damage to the
Right.
body.
Let him finish.
That the emergency room physicians cannot identify
and then
the
expect
children.
me not to respond.
No, we'll get to it. But
Go ahead.
They cannot identify the children that have been shot with them. They do significant amount of more damage. Yes, they could have gone in there with a .22 rifle and started shooting, but the chances of surviving a gunshot wound from a .22 are a lot better than an AR-15.
Right, but
you can't. There are 20 million AR-15s out in the world now, in the United States.
Are you prepared? Are you prepared to criminalize every American who owns an AR-15?
I didn't say that.
Well,
I didn't say a thing about criminalizing AR-15s.
I'm sorry?
What I will say is large capacity magazines should be limited.
Okay, let's jump on that for just a second, not the gun, because there have been push to ban large capacity magazines. There's also been a push for extreme risk laws. And this is what I really wanted to get into, where family and law enforcement can intervene when a person poses a significant threat. After this shooting, we found out from the police chief in Nashville that this person was actually seeing a doctor for something, but no one went to anyone about it, nor do we have a law in place that would have actually done anything. So maybe on the legal side here, Greg, are we red flag laws? People get a little leery. Some people want them. Some people say it's too easy for an estranged husband or wife to point a finger and, what do you think?
Don, I think that's a great question. Tennessee is #1 in gun violence in the nation. We're number 44 in healthcare resources to help people with mental illness. And the shooting in Nashville, this individual bought 7 guns from 5 different places legally, and to do so, you have to go through an arduous background check by the ATF, et cetera. What we're going to have to do is have a real conversation. And it's really amazing. You cannot have a Second Amendment conversation without the volume going up. In this country, a few years ago, we had a 10-year ban on certain types of assault rifles. The world didn't stop. The Second Amendment didn't stop. You can't tell me when George Washington and Alexander Hamilton were talking about a well-funded, dressed militia, they could conceive of these weapons of mass destruction. And I sat there and covered and watched the Parkland sentencing in the trial, where a student talked about how powerful the AR was, where the reverberation caused the ceiling tiles to almost create a snow-like effect. And when the bullet hit the classmate, the flesh was ripped off their body. Now, but what the NRA and the right wants to do is talk about the person pulling the trigger, not what the weapon of mass destruction did. Until we have a realistic talk about preserving our Second Amendment without putting these dangerous weapons in the hands of the mentally ill people and the people that are just plain void of a moral compass, we're not going to do anything. I'll tell you what we're going to do, back to your earlier question on school safety. It's going to be load them up with more SROs, create a prison type, bulletproof windows, security at the door, and we're not going to answer the mental health problem, and we're not going to touch the red flag laws.
Greg, let me ask you a question. On the Virginia Tech campus a few years ago, a killer killed 32 people with handguns. What should be done about handguns?
I think we need to have a common sense
in a gun-free
approach.
zone, by the way.
No, I agree, but then again, you see this person, Miss Hale, bought that you equated transgender with white supremacy, which I didn't get the correlation in terms of the media being a white supremacist with a transgender person.
No, I didn't equate the two.
Let me interrupt both of you. Just a news organization may not use that term anymore, but let's move beyond that, because one, we're not going to solve the problem. Two, we need to take a break, and we'll be right back. Welcome back to Tennessee This Week. We now want to get into President Trump's arraignment, and since we have legal analysts with us, Greg Isaacs, I want to start there. What do you think about the way that this was presented, the charges, felonies? Is this something that's going to stick, or do you think this is something that President Trump beats?
First, Tennessee's number 11 in gun violence, not number 1.
Okay, we'll get
Second, the grand jury, we heard a number of leaks. Unfortunate, we shouldn't have known what the indictment was until Trump was arraigned. And now we know 34 counts that are felonies, and they're only felonies because they're document fraud cases, business fraud that are tied to another crime. That crime is election fraud, and it is complicated, convoluted, and it is going to be difficult for the Manhattan DA, in my opinion, to connect the dots, because your star witness, Michael Cohen, Trump's ex-lawyer, is a convicted felon. You got money to a porn star laundered through 2 fictitious LLCs, somehow coming back to Trump, tied to the National Enquirer. Why on earth did they bring a case that complicated? Because, I mean, Don, when I see a theft case, it's pretty simple. You stole, you forged a document. When the legal pundits saw this, everyone is scratching their heads. I think Trump has got a good chance as this goes forward.
I have an idea why you brought it.
Well, that's what I was going to get to next year. Even if he beats it legally, this case isn't even going to get tried. If it
I think first of all, Alvin Bragg's been under all kinds of pressure, particularly from the mayor of New York, who has said Bragg, has contributed to New York becoming a laughingstock of his criminal justice system because of soft on crime policies. Right. So this has changed the narrative for Bragg. Now, for at least a period of time, he's a liberal hero. And so I think to some degree he's taking care of himself, and he's also fulfilling a campaign promise. Kind of said, I'm going to go get Trump. So that's essentially why it's going on. And to Greg's point, there are all the legal analysts I've seen talking about it say, like at CNN, it's uninspiring or something along those lines.
Well, I'm not an attorney, and I don't play one on TV.
That's okay.
But I can give you about 10 million.
I take that personally, Craig.
10 million reasons why Donald Trump is in a better place than he was last Tuesday in terms of fundraising. Yeah. I've said from the beginning, Donald Trump will be the candidate of the Republican Party, and I don't see anything that's stopping that right now.
If you're going to kill an elephant named Trump, you better have a big gun. And right. Unfortunately, Bragg's gun, I don't think is big enough to take him down.
Well, the Georgia gun and the Washington gun will be bigger.
Well, they're trying to, obviously, one of the thoughts here, I think, politically, and 76%, according to a CNN poll, of Americans think this is a politically motivated thing. possibly a political strategy
Right.
as well as a legal one.
We have run out of time, guys. We want to thank our pundits for joining us, for all their opinions and their insights. We want to thank you for watching Tennessee This Week, and we'll see you next week.
The views of guests on Tennessee This Week are their own and do not represent the views of WATE 6 on your side or Next Star Broadcasting.